In a world filled with uncertainty, two semi-intelligent, somewhat interesting, Midwestern, family guy, business coaches with dad bods, provide mildly insightful ideas through their semi-focused dialogue. Welcome to It Doesn't Take a Genius.
Ramsey!
Marshall, what a pleasure to see you, sir.
Thank you. Listen, I took into account all of the time management discussions that we had during our last podcast, and I think we should cut out the playful banter, get right into today's topic.
Fair enough. Take a victory lap. Well done. And we are in the middle of our time management series. We anticipate this being 2 of 3. And last time we talked about, of course, just all the things you could do to manage your time, saying no, focusing your attention on the things that were important. And it's just all of it revolved around, saying no to things that weren't important, executing on the things that were important. So how do you determine that? So that's sort of what we wanted to talk about today was just this idea of determining what your important things are, what your priorities are.
Right. Well, even when you say the word priorities, for those of you viewing at home, you may notice behind Mark Ramsey's head is the word priority. And so I think you've done a little research on, we talk about priorities all the time, and your research has figured out that may not be correct.
Yeah, it's a Latin word that was in the singular because it meant the first thing, the first. What is first, and we talked about this a little bit before that there's typically in a race a first place, a second place, a third place. So what's first? Well, we took that word into English. Then the Industrial Revolution happened and things started kind of speeding up, and suddenly we had businesses that had to maximize their resources, including time. And so suddenly priority became priorities. Honestly, not until the 1900s, if you look at the research, the word really starts entering our vocabulary as a plural, not until the 1900s. So it's a little bit of a misnomer to say priorities, because what's your first thing? What's your important thing? And I know we're about to get to some good stuff that is behind you, but I do want to say for those not familiar with the phrase, there's this phrase "tyranny of the urgent," and it comes from Charles Hummel. He was president of a college in Rhode Island, and he wrote this little booklet. He was a part of a campus ministry actually that I was in college called InterVarsity Christian Fellowship. He wrote this little booklet for college students. It's a booklet about time management. And one of the things he says in there is just that he was talking to a very successful business person who said, that's really the thing that's going to get you is letting the urgent things crowd out the important things. And so the booklet is called Tyranny of the Urgent. So that's perhaps a good segue into what you have behind you. Not that I don't think you're beautiful, Mike, but I wonder if maybe we could segue into you. Could you just not be on camera? God bless you. Thank you. Okay.
I get that request a lot. Yeah. Could you just not be visible? So what we have is, a lot of people refer to it as the Covey Matrix because Covey made it famous in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Interestingly enough, Covey's book after that was Putting First Things First. So Covey figured out of all the stuff he talked about in the 7 Habits, figuring out your priority was important enough to dedicate another entire book to. And so as other people call it the Eisenhower Matrix, and I think that's the first time it gained real popularity. So what you're looking at is if you're listening at home or in the car, is there's a matrix, and there's a 4-corner quadrant, and in the upper left hand, urgent. Quadrant 1 is important and urgent. And this is all the crisis management stuff. This is firefighting. This is you put your hat on. There's a mad customer who needs to talk to you. There's a the machine's broke down and the guy who's going to fix it is on the phone. This is all those things that it's urgent and it's important and it must be dealt with now. And so what we find is, especially during times of change like we have now, is that we're spending a lot of time in quadrant one. And it's incredibly exhausting. It's incredibly painful. Some people find it, I've found that they find it energizing. They like rescue. They like spontaneous. They like firefighting. The bell rings. I slide down the pole. I save the department. All right. Well, the problem is that the more time I spend in quadrant one is less time I spend in quadrant two. Quadrant two is in the upper right-hand corner, and it's important and not urgent. These are all the things that are important, but can happen. They don't have to happen at a specific time. These are the things that we always talked about that we want to do more. We want to do more strategic planning. We want to come up with an idea and think it through before we act upon it. The most frequent thing I hear about this is one-on-one coaching. I'd like to sit down individually with each of my employees once a week, once a month, and have these wonderful in-depth conversations. And that conversation could happen on a Monday or a Wednesday. Truly doesn't matter if it happens on Monday or Wednesday. Therefore, it's important, but it's not urgent. There's not a specific time. And because of that, we can push it off. We can, well, we didn't get to it Monday, so let's just reschedule that for Wednesday. And then Wednesday comes and I'm in quadrant one, I'm fighting fires, and then it got pushed off again. And then I show up and then it's evaporated. It's been 6 months since I sat down one-on-one with my team members and had a talk.
Yeah.
The bottom part of the quadrant is quadrant three, and it is urgent and not important. And so these are things that you have to do, right? They're part of life, but they're just not all that important. These are opportunities for delegation. Can I get somebody else to do this? Right? Can I hand this off? Can I empower my team to do that? And then quadrant four is it's not important and it's not urgent. Then maybe it needs to go. Maybe it needs to go. These are distractions. It's everything from video games to picking your teams for the March Madness contest. It's not important. It's not urgent. And yet sometimes we get pulled into this quadrant. So I've showed this to a lot of managers over the years, and many of them have told me that it's life-changing to start to think of that. So how does this matrix relate to what you were talking about as far as figuring out what is the priority?
Yeah, well, so a couple things, because this is just a thing of beauty. If you are finding that you are spending all of your time in quadrant one with all of these crises moments, is it possible that, you talked about firefighting, if the firefighter keeps showing up to the same house over and over again to put out the fire, maybe it's possible he has a not urgent, but very important task of finding out why that house keeps catching on fire. And that's going to take scheduling that investigation in and doing some legwork that it's not time sensitive. It doesn't involve a fire. It involves preventing fires. So there are some things that people can think about. Maybe I look at all those crisis moments and it helps me identify, there's the priority. I've got to fix that one particular thing that keeps coming up like whack-a-mole. So I think there's an opportunity.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. So think of quadrant two, important and not urgent, as fire prevention. So if we have good planning, even if it's just planning our day, making a to-do list for the day, and so instead of us being surprised because the customer's here and they need something immediately, if we plan for that a day ahead of time or even that morning, then that customer showing up was expected, it was planned for, and we were prepared, and therefore it's not a fire. It's not it's not this urgent around That's the beauty of it. So it was Covey's, admonition that if you can carve out some time for quadrant 2, that there will be a correlation in drop in the amount of work that happens in quadrant 1, the important and urgent, the firefighting. So if I can do fire prevention, planning, getting my people trained and anticipating things, I will spend less time in quadrant 1, more time in quadrant 2, and I will get my life back. I will get a sense of control that people desire from their workplace. And instead of being caught in, as they say in 4 disciplines of execution, the whirlwind, instead of just being beat to pieces in a whirlwind, I'll actually be able to plan my day and plan my life, plan my work, and do the most important things when they need to be done.
Yeah. And I do think that another thing to watch out for is, am I delegating the right things? If I'm delegating important tasks and focusing on some of that whirlwind, some of that stuff that frankly is busy work, maybe it's crisis management. Maybe I'm just focused on things that I feel like I can, at least I can own this and control this. But I'm skipping the really important tasks that aren't time sensitive. Well, there's a missed opportunity. Don't delegate that. Figure out how to carve that into your day.
Oh, no, well said, well said. Yeah, and so there's this initial investment. You're stuck in quadrant 1, you're fighting fires like crazy, and then somehow you're going to have to put in extra effort. You're going to have to invest in quadrant 2 to get yourself out of quadrant 1. And so there may be some later nights, some earlier mornings, some missed lunches. But know that like any investment, if you put in a little bit of extra here, over time you should see a return on that investment over your lifetime.
That's right.
And so I think that's the opportunity. And so maybe it's it could be as simple as I've had managers say, after everybody leaves, I stay 15 minutes later and I make my to-do list for the next day.
Right.
That's it. And all of a sudden they've got their life back. So if this 15 minutes just keeps me out of quadrant 1 the next day.
Totally. For me, it's 5 a.m. Getting up at 5 a.m. and beating the kids up. Not beating up the kids, but beating the kids up before they wake up is what I mean by that. That's my hour. I get that. I make the coffee for my wife and I sit down and go through what's going to have to happen, and everything is better. I mean, it changed everything frankly, for how my professional life works, let alone personal life.
Well, and there again, we tend to list things in the order of the importance we believe in them. So the fact that you make the wife coffee first, right, tells me that you're a very smart man. So I make the wife's coffee, then I plan my day. So we tend to enunciate things in the order in which we see them as important. So I like how that was positioned. So I think the takeaway here is Google this. All right, I'll put it as a thumbnail on the YouTube video, and just take a look at this matrix. And you can even start to write. There's blank ones. There's actually apps you can download that have the matrix on them, and start to figure out, okay, what are the things I'm doing every day, and what quadrant do they fall in, and then how do I spend more time in quadrant 2 in order to get a handle on my life, get my life back.
Yeah. So we're backtracking here a little bit. We leave you with the challenge of, study this and use the matrix as you consider the tasks that you're undergoing. Next week, we're going to talk about sort of a more specific way to sort of take an inventory of where your time is going. So that'll be next week. And of course, all of this, we had another request, Mike. We had yet another, dare I call them a fan? We had a fan who...
these fans are exhausting.
Right.
Yeah, both of them. Both of our fans are just... killing.
They made a good point about, that it's a phrase that we've heard from our old buddy Cliff Hahn, the late great Cliff Hahn, who and this is vulgar, but I'm going to use it because I've never found a better way to say it. But all of this stuff we're talking about, if you don't actually put it into place and invest that time, take that extra effort. He called it mental masturbation. It's somewhat pleasurable to go through the experience of thinking through all these things, but you never make a baby. There's no actual product from this unless you actually put it into practice. So on that incredibly vulgar note, we challenge you to try some of this out with the tasks. Evaluate your tasks as you go through your day. Next week we'll get into how to take an inventory.
Awesome. No, I think that you're right on track, and I'm excited to be a part of this discussion. Let's see what our announcer has to say. Hope he's just as excited at this point.
I doubt it.
And that, I guess, is that. It doesn't take a genius. No rights reserved, nothing trademarked, copyrighted, or even original. Feel free to give it to anyone, anytime, using any and all media formats. Warning, Mark and Mike may or may not make another one. I'm your announcer, and I did not get paid a nickel to do this. They won't even let me tell you my name. So until next time, if there is a next time, stay safe, be well.
That's good enough.